Before I explain anything, I want you to notice what you are actually seeing. Do you see a sphere? Do you see curvature? Do you see something coming out of a planar surface? Can you notice how your brain wants to answer with a story it's concocting to justify this, instead of answering with what your eyes are actually showing you? This is a flat plane with no curvature. This is not a sphere. It does not wrap around anything. The elevation data goes from 0 degrees in the east to 90 degrees at peak and back to 0 degrees in the west, a total of 180 degrees. That geometry defines a plane. The sun emerges from a plane and it sets back into that same plane. If you're still picturing a spinning globe right now, that image is not coming from this model. It's an assumption you brought with you. In the standard space model, the sun's diameter is about 109 Earth diameters, and the sun's distance from Earth is about 11,750 Earth diameters, what we usually call 93 million miles. An object that is 109 Earths wide and 11,750 Earths away does not rise out of the ground, and it does not set into the ground. What you are looking at here is not a cosmic model. It is a local observer-centric rendering. The ground is fixed. The observer is fixed. The sky rotates as time changes. This is not how an atomistic material universe behaves. This is how a 3D rendering system behaves. Now we stop talking about visuals and talk about what a model actually is. Any object claimed to be moving through three-dimensional space must be described by something called a 6 degree of freedom state vector. 3 degrees describe position x, y, z. 3 degrees describe orientation, roll, pitch, yaw. And if the object is really moving, the model must also include velocity, acceleration, angular velocity, and angular acceleration. This is not optional. Without this data, motion does not exist in the model. These are the models we refer to as our models, not because we built them, but because they only function if Earth is fixed and stationary and the luminaries rise from a plane and set back into that same plane. That is not the claim made by spinning spaceball models, and that distinction matters. The model we rely on most is the Andrew Marsh 3D Sun Simulator. This is the fixed and stationary plane version, the version engineers actually use. It is used for solar panel alignment, building heat load calculations, and precise shadow studies. It outputs solar azimuth and altitude data accurate to hundredths of a degree per second. It predicts shadow length, direction, intensity, and movement at every moment. All of this is calculated on a fixed and stationary plane. If I press play, I get precise solar position data for any location on Earth any day of the year. There is complete data for a sun moving relative to an observer on a fixed plane. And there is zero data for Earth translating, rotating, or accelerating through space. Where is Earth's x, y, z position? Where is Earth's orbital velocity? Where is Earth's acceleration? Where is Earth's rotation state? Where is Earth's angular velocity? It isn't there. Now, this same fixed Earth solar model was also visualized on the side of a spinning spaceball. This is the version spinning spaceball advocates point to. The calculation layer did not change. This is the same data visualization and data from the fixed and stationary plane version of the tool. The rotating globe is a visualization layer added on top. As time moves, the data is still only sun azimuth and elevation. There is zero data for Earth's motion. At small scales, roughly 175 miles in radius, you can clearly see the sun rising from Earth and setting back into Earth. As scale increases, the visualization begins to fail in worse ways. We see large regions of negative horizon elevation. The data only exists for 180 degrees. At this point, we see the sun crashing into the side of Earth as it rotates around the observer. At maximum scale, you can clearly see the sun's path is centered on the observer. Even though the sun is making it around Earth without crashing into it now, it is clearly not a sun 93 million miles away. Keep in mind, it is graphically impossible to show Earth and sun together to scale. If Earth were just 1 centimeter wide, the sun would need to be displayed over 387 feet away. And to show just the solar system out past the Oort cloud at the same scale, the screen would need to be approximately 7,300 miles across. There has never been, and never will be, a communicable 2-scale heliocentric model. And none of this even addresses the missing 6 degrees of freedom data. If everything were moving, accelerating, and diverging through space, paths would never repeat. Yet they do perfectly. Look, these background stars are non-dynamic. There is no measured North Star, no celestial South Pole, no moving constellations, no 6 degree of freedom telemetry for any star. They are decoration, not calculated objects. There is something this model shows very clearly. The sun is not moving in this model. The sun is fixed and stationary. And this is the strongest model spinning spaceball advocates can point to. Now let's move on to 2 more models that we openly claim as ours, SunCalc and MoonCalc. These tools are often presented as simple visual aids, but they are doing something very specific. They calculate the azimuth and altitude of the sun and moon relative to a fixed observer. What you are seeing here is a top-down orthographic view of the same solar geometry used in the Andrew Marsh 3D Sun Simulator. The difference is perspective, not calculation. With SunCalc, it's impossible to zoom out far enough to avoid seeing the sun rise from a plane and set back into that same plane. The sun does not emerge from behind a curved surface. It rises into view within an observer's circle of sight, reaches peak altitude, and then sets back into the plane. This motion is entirely contained within the observer's circle of sight. For most people, that circle is realistically about 20 miles or less. When these models are viewed at realistic observational scales, the geometry becomes obvious. The sun rises from the plane, it moves across the sky, and it sets back into the plane. MoonCalc does the same thing, but for the moon. It calculates lunar azimuth and altitude relative to a fixed observer. Just like SunCalc, it's impossible to expand the view in a way that turns this into a spinning spaceball model. The moon rises from a plane, it reaches peak altitude, and it sets back into that same plane. SunCalc and MoonCalc calculate luminary position. They calculate azimuth. They calculate altitude. They calculate rise time and set time. They do not calculate Earth's motion. No Earth XYZ position. No Earth orbital velocity, no Earth acceleration, no Earth rotation state, no Earth angular velocity. Spinning spaceball advocates often claim that SunCalc and MoonCalc are secretly globe models, but a model cannot be something it does not calculate. If Earth's motion is not present as data, then Earth's motion does not exist in the model. These tools only work if Earth is fixed and stationary and the luminaries move relative to an observer. SunCalc and MoonCalc are not independent curiosities. They are consistent with the Andrew Marsh model. All 3 calculate the same thing: luminary motion around a fixed observer on a motionless plane. And when multiple independent tools used by engineers, developers, and astronomers all require the same assumptions to function, those assumptions are not accidental. The biggest model of all that we use and openly claim as ours is Stellarium. Andrew Marsh tracks the sun. SunCalc tracks the sun. MoonCalc tracks the moon, but when we want to know where any other luminary is at any given time, we use Stellarium. Spinning spaceball advocates insist Stellarium is their model, but that claim collapses the moment you examine what the model is actually calculating. When you turn off the ground in Stellarium, you can clearly see exactly what is happening. The luminaries rotate around an observer positioned on a motionless plane. As time changes, the only data changing is azimuth and altitude relative to the observer. There is no 6 degree of freedom data for Earth in Stellarium. No Earth XYZ position, no Earth orbital velocity, no Earth acceleration, no Earth rotation state, no Earth angular velocity. Only the Sun, Moon, and wandering stars change position. All other stars remain in exactly the same positions relative to each other. For those of you with good spatial awareness, you will immediately understand that for that to occur, Earth cannot be in motion. Some claim a hidden R value exists within the code of these tools and proves a globe. That value is back engineered from the measured width of the equator, and it does nothing to solve the missing 6 degrees of freedom data problem. If Stellarium were a real heliocentric model, you could click on any object and retrieve its 6 degree of freedom state vector. That data does not exist. So yes, Stellarium is one of our models, not because we built it, but because it only works if Earth is fixed and stationary and the luminaries move around an observer within a defined circle of sight. Where is Earth's XYZ position? Where is Earth's orbital velocity? Where is Earth's acceleration? Where is Earth's rotation state? Where is Earth's angular velocity? If this information does not exist in relation to an absolute reference frame, it cannot be claimed as a spinning spaceball model. A model cannot be a spinning spaceball model if the spin does not exist as data. If the sun were 109 Earth diameters wide and 11,750 Earth diameters away, what exactly is it rising out of right here? We are not using spinning spaceball models. Those do not exist, and due to the scales involved, are impossible to communicate. We are using observer-centric renderers that do not contain 6 independent degrees of freedom for a moving Earth. If the motion isn't in the math, it's not in the model. These and all other models that show the luminaries rising from and setting into a plane in an observer's circle of sight are models that show how the luminaries work in a 3D rendered virtual reality framework, not in an infinitely expanding spaceball framework. These are our models, not spinning spaceballers' models.